Hi guys, this video is the first video for the series where we will be talking about Django models. In a later video, I will be discussing what models are, but for the meantime, I will be discussing the current state of our application so that you guys can follow along. This code base can be found on your Moodle pages and is the end state, basically, of the previous slide sets. What we have is What we have here is our functional tests on the right, our urls.py for our lists app on the upper left corner, and in the lower right, on the lower left corner, is your views.py. Our unit test has two tests. One that tests if you can start and retrieve a list on the root URL, which is localhost port 8000. The second test is a test for the ability to create a new list, wherein the test first goes to localhost port 8000 /tasks. There, it will look for an input field with an ID of ID new item, as tested by line 19. And then on line 20, you have an assertion that basically checks if that input field has a placeholder called enter a to-do item. On line 25, Selenium is basically typing out finish CSI40 project onto that input field or into that input field and then pressing enter so that it will be submitted. We will wait for what will happen. This test assumes that, or is testing that, our application should redirect to localhost 8000 /task/1, which is a page that should have finished CSI40 project as part of its page or as part of its content. But since we're not going to be doing all of these redirects just yet, we can just remove all the tests first, all the assertions, all the send keys, leaving line 19, wherein we have the input element. And then after, okay, so now we have removed all our assertions. Let's check what would happen with our functional test. Now we have an error that says that we cannot locate the element that has, or the input element, ID new item. To keep this simple, instead of using the task list URL, I will just be using the homepage URL, which means I need to edit the homepage, the home HTML, home.html, so that I can fix this error. Let us go to home.html. Here, to make it pass, I know it's an input. I will create an input field. So that's input type is equal to text placeholder should be enter a to-do item, and then we can run that test again. I still do have an error because it still can't find that element. Why does that happen? Because I did not add an ID attribute to my input element. I should call it ID new item. It should now be working properly. Okay. Now we have everything passing. So what we need to do next is to figure out where all of this new input is going to be shown. In our functional test, which is going to be our main specification as to how our application flows, okay, we basically have to, or the idea is that once we add to our task list, you expect it to show up as a list somewhere. So what do we do in our test? We can check, or we can find an element that is a list on our page. List, let's not call it list because we are in Python. Let's call it task list is equal to self.browser.find element by tag name unordered list or UL. So in HTML, lists are usually unordered lists denoted by a UL tag. So by doing self.browser.find element by tag name, you are looking for an unordered list on the page. And then after that, we can check for its children, or we can look through its children or child elements, which are usually list items. I will go back to our HTML to just show you what the ideal layout would look like. From the upper left corner, you would see an unordered list, a UL element with LI elements inside of it. So that is how a list would look like. All UL elements would have LI elements inside its tags. Okay, so let's undo everything because we don't need that just yet. So in our functional test, we can look for all list items, task list items is equal to task list dot find elements by tag name and then list item. I noticed a typo error here. We can't use a tag name because for our task list, because looking up by a tag name means that you might be able to receive multiple elements, so we should use an ID. Let's call it our task list. So now we have a task list that has the ID of task list, and then all our list items are found through finding it by looking for it in our task list using the find elements with an S by tag name, wherein our tag name is LI. What we can do now is to look for our task. So again, going back to what we did a while ago, input.sendKeys finish CSI40 project, input.sendKeys keys.enter, and then we wait a bit, time.sleep. After doing everything, what we expect it to do is to finish CSI40 project in one of our list items. To do that assertion, what we can do is to write something like this. self.assertIn. So you have seen this method before. AssertIn, we check if finish CSI40 project is in any of the rows. So how do we accomplish that? Task list items is a list, so we can use list comprehension. You guys should remember list comprehension from CSI 21. That would look like, okay, we start with our for loop so that you can see it. For item in task list item. Task list items. So that's our for loop. And then what are we checking again? So we're checking for the text property of each of our list items. So that would be item.text for item in task list items. What this does, again, is we're asserting that the string finish CSI40 project is in any one of the items in our task list items. Okay, now, if we run our test again, we should get an error wherein our URL or our list item does not appear. So what do? We can just create that list item right now. No problems with having a list, an empty list. Okay, we have an empty list. Let's just put it on one line, and then let's give it an ID of task_list. Running the test again would give us an assertion error about items not appearing on that list. Okay, so keys is not defined. I have to import that from Selenium. From selenium.webdriver.common.keys import keys. Run that again. Now I expect it to say that we have an assertion error. But I haven't imported the time library, so let's do that again. Import time. Okay, so I imported the unit test, import time, line break, and then from Selenium, because that's a third-party library. Remember, that's the general order that we want to organize our imports. That's the way we want to organize our imports. However, I have also noticed that I have an error here with as to my styling of my code because this is a class. So there should be two lines before, two line breaks, two spaces before I start a class. Okay, so let's fix that. And then let's run this one last time. And then we now have an assertion error because our list is empty and it could not find that string. Fixing this will be in the next video.